So how are you in this moment? As you're lying there in your semi-supine position, ask yourself, how do you feel? Not just your, aches and pains or feeling ease in the body, but as you're lying in your semi-supine position, which is probably very familiar to you, ask yourself that question, how do I feel? Am I, full of energy? Is it flying around me? Am I buzzing from my day? Or are you actually quite ready for rest and digest because you're already in that energy? You're already quite chill. Learning to recognize this is so useful for us, because then we know whether interacting with this person or this situation or that situation sends us into a world of chaos or not. And so, for example, maybe that's the case, and there you are, and you're thinking to yourself, God, it's been a hell of a day. I can feel my heart's still going, and I'm breathing is all irregular, and I'm definitely in my fight flight. What can I do about it? Well, the first thing we can do is nothing. We can be lying here saying, I don't need to do anything. I'll think about some stuff. And I'll think about me in this environment, wherever you are right now. This is safe. And some of those places look really quite cozy. You've got fires on and blankets. You're in a safe environment, so you're telling yourself that. You're also going to feel the floor beneath you, whether that's through all the parts of your body that are in contact with it, or maybe there's something that's more obvious. Maybe for you, your shoulder girdle is very prominently on the ground. Notice that and use that as a reassurance. I'm here in space and this is the ground beneath me. And that message that will loop back into your brain, and your brain will say, oh, actually, maybe we are okay. Maybe everything isn't a high panic and a drama. And then you're going to take your awareness down to your pelvis, and you're going to say, oh yeah, there's my heavy pelvis resting, the back of it resting on the floor. And there's the ground, and it supports me. And I feel safe. Or do you? Maybe you can ask that. And then you might say to yourself, well, there's my left foot and there's my right foot. And they too, the soles of the feet can feel the ground. And there it is, the ground supporting me. It's the constant. Aren't we lucky that we've got it? Bit of gravity helping us stay on it. And then taking your mind all the way up to your head, which is actually quite heavy. And that's resting on your paperback books or your block or your cushion, whatever you've chosen. And you're going to say the same thing. You're going to say, I can feel that ground. Yes, indirectly, because it's coming through an extra surface, but you've got the ground beneath your head. And even if you were sat in a chair doing this, even if you were in a chair that wasn't as firm as it could be, you would still have a sensory awareness of your contact with another surface. And that's incredibly reassuring. And so if you were in a panic, if you were having a difficult day and you needed to bring yourself into a rest and digest, something as simple as that is going to start that process, because you're reassuring yourself. And then the work can become more sophisticated, as some of you well know. Because once we've established where we are in space and that we're safe and we're on the floor, then we can start to be a bit more specific with our directed thinking. Then we can start to say, hello, neck. Hello, neck muscles. And how are you today? And ask yourself, say, I would like to allow my neck to be free, to not be so gripped, in fact, to be released. I would like the muscles from the left ear all the way down the side of the neck into the left shoulder to relax a little bit, as if you were switching them off. Ask it. It's just a thought. And then take your awareness over to the right side of your neck and say, I would like the muscles from around the right ear and perhaps the right side of the jaw as well to soften and release and lengthen all the way down through and into the right shoulder. A directed thought. I let my neck be free. And as we release those muscles in the neck, what happens is that a little bit more weight is given to those books through the head and into the books, because we're no longer pulling our head off the floor. We're letting it rest onto that nice, reassuring, safe floor. And then we might think about a bit more of ourselves, the whole of our torso. We've got the shoulder girdle there, also quite weighty and probably full of tension. I mean, you know, I'm not going to lie, I've been doing this a long time and I still get a tense neck and tight shoulders. Who doesn't? We're human beings. It's what living's about, getting in and out of tension, apart from, as far as I'm concerned. How's your shoulder girdle? How are your armpits? Can you ask them, your left one and your right one, to let go a bit? Can you send that thought, that message? Could you imagine that the very tops of your arms, sort of the heads of the upper arm bones, are dropping into your shoulder sockets? You might be really good at anatomy and know what that looks like in a picture, or you might not. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You can still ask it. You can say to your right top of arm that you'd like it just to drop back into the socket that is your shoulder. You can say to the top of the left arm that you'd like something to release there so that the top of the left arm can rest back into the shoulder socket. A sort of connecting up. That connection continues along your collarbones all the way through to the base of the front of your neck. If you can take a moment to be at the base of the front of the neck, check in with the muscles down the front of your neck, from under your chin and all the way down, asking for a bit of softness. If, like me, you do a lot of talking in your day, it'll be such a relief to get a little softness, a little ease through the front of the neck. Let the tongue rest in your mouth wherever it rests. If it works for the organization of your mouth and lips and things, let your lips be closed so that you're breathing through your nose. That's the ideal place to be getting the air in and out. And your breathing doesn't need to be anything clever, nothing fancy. It's not a breathing exercise, it's just an allowing. Air coming in through the nostrils and out through the nostrils. So you've been lying there for a little while now, sort of probably 6, 7 minutes, maybe longer. What's your body saying to you now? Close your eyes just for a moment. As you let those eyes close, say to yourself that the eyeballs can rest back in the sockets. You're not having to peer at anything or read anything. See if the face muscles relax a little bit when that happens. And then when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and be aware again of your environment. You don't need to stare at anything or peer at anything, but you can allow the things that you can see, the vision of those, just to come towards you so that you're not straining your eyes. We encourage you to keep your eyes open in this work because you're learning a conscious practice. So you don't want to be nodding off. So easily done, especially in the evening or late afternoon. Let's take some awareness down to the pelvis now. That weighty structure, the back of it resting on the floor as it is. That connection between your back and your legs. And when we're wanting to encourage a more appropriate tone through the legs, something has to give up a little bit in the pelvis, definitely in the lower belly area, sort of across the front of the pubic bone. All the musculature there, easing, softening. If this isn't your first rodeo, you might be able to say to yourself, I'm going to let my pelvis widen, as if something deep within it is broadening. You don't do it, you just think it. It's an allowing that is born out of a thought process. At the very bottom of your pelvis is your bottom, and at the very bottom of that are your sit bones. They're the two ischial tuberosities that you sit on when you sit at your desk or less noticeably in the sofa. But there they are, the sit bones at the end of your pelvis, your left one and your right one. And sometimes it can be useful just to think of them as being quite heavy, as if the left sit bone is falling away from the back of your left knee, and the right sit bone falling away from the back of the right knee. And if you needed a bit more pelvic tone, you can think your sit bones away from each other, finding that broadening again, deep inside the pelvis. It's a good place to be this time of year. If you need to work on your pelvis for any reason, winter is really ideal. Everything about our environment, our natural world, is saying go inwards, be still, and find that magic, those secrets that are held there. Do nothing. Take a break. There's nothing to do here. It's just you on the floor resting. You can't get it wrong. You certainly can't fall off. You're safe. With your left foot and your right foot gently planted on the ground, you might like to just allow the knees to rock a little to the left and a little to the right, as if you were checking in, noticing whether the tops of the thighs were gripping or whether they're easy. Lovely. Keep it slow, keep it gentle. It's a mindfulness class, not an exercise class, and you're all doing very nicely there with your rocking. Ease them back to stillness, almost as if they're sighing their way back into the hip sockets, those heads of thigh bones resting back, connecting the legs through to the front of the spine indirectly. Oh, what a relief to let the legs rest in the hip sockets. What a relief to feel the support indirectly of that floor below. And let's think about that breathing again. Nothing fancy required, just the air coming in through your nose and out through your nose. And of course, what's happening is the expanding rib cage and the releasing rib cage with each breath is moving. Your shoulder blades might notice that. Even the backs of your arms might notice the movement of your ribs. How does that feel? Is there movement in your ribs? Doesn't need to be enormous. You're not running a marathon, you're just lying on the floor, you're breathing wants to be quiet and steady, but the rib cage will be moving. You'll notice that if you're quiet enough through all aspects of yourself, like a big wave moving through the body. I love semi-supine position. Alexander, FM Alexander, where all of this stuff came from, he called it a position of mechanical advantage. In another way, we could say that your body on the whole can release quite easily in this. We can find appropriate tone lying in this position. But sometimes it's nice to lie in fully supine. Sometimes that's what the body really wants, a full legs stretched out rest. I would like you to ask your pelvis. I would like you to say to your pelvis, would you like me to stretch my legs out? And if your pelvis says, yes, please, then one by one, you can stretch your legs out. And if you can't hear yet what your body's saying to you, you're welcome to experiment with stretching a leg out and then the other one, and deciding then whether that's what you want to do or not. Changing our mind is one of the most freeing things we can do. It reminds us that we're in charge. We're in charge of ourselves. I'm not in charge of you. I'm just giving you some ideas, some things to think about. It's you that's in charge of you. And you might like to lie there for a moment or two with your legs stretched out. And then you might like to think of your back widening to create a support for your legs and draw them back up again one by one. Or stay there. It's up to you. Let's just think about the arms for a moment. Reminding the left arm that there's nothing going on here. It's not lifting anything. It's not doing anything or writing anything or typing anything, stirring anything. It's still, it's quiet, it's resting. Let's remind the right arm that it's nothing to do here. It can be still and it can be quiet. And the elbows can have weight to them, almost as if they were falling into the floor behind you. And those upper arm bones, the heads of the upper arm bones, can be resting back into the shoulder sockets, getting that lovely connection through the collarbones to the base of the front of your neck. And you might find that as the arms undo and there's that connection through to the base of the front of the neck, that something around the collarbones and the breastbone can sort of lighten up, like an easing, like a freedom through the front of the chest. The breathing might change, or it just might feel more pleasant in your body. Take your mind to somewhere between your shoulder blades and ask something there to release. Don't question it. Don't overthink it. Just say, oh, somewhere between my shoulder blades. Yes, I'll find some muscles and I'll see if I can release them. And then let your head, that heavy head that you can feel the back of it resting on your books, let it have a tiny little movement, rolling left, rolling right, like a micro movement, really. Hardly a movement at all. You've freed it up a bit, that head, that neck, because you released something between your shoulder blades. And when your head's back to stillness, You might like to ask yourself the question whether you're going to stay where you are on the floor for a little while longer, or whether you feel that it's time now to think about coming up to sitting. Check in with the small of your back, with your lower back, especially if your legs are outstretched. Start to allow some movement, perhaps a bit of movement or rolling or rocking through the pelvis. You're giving your body a chance to catch up with your mind's intention. And if your intention is that you're going to roll on your side and come on up to sitting, then your body wants to be able to catch up with that. It needs to be connected to your intention. We all talk about that mind-body, don't we? Really, we're just one. It's impossible to separate it, really, but we do try, don't we? And really, we're just one. So if you have decided to get up, then do roll on your side if that works for you. It's, I find, a very kind way of getting up. It gives us more time. It stops the neck muscles from over gripping and tightening too much. And if you are staying on the floor to do a little more, then that's fine too. You're absolutely in charge of you. If you've come up to sitting, you might just notice, what does that feel like in you now? Does it feel okay? That energy that we connected in at the beginning, where you were feeling into your levels of fight, flight, or rest and digest. I wonder how that's feeling. Perhaps you're feeling a bit calmer, perhaps you've got more connection to that, those elements within you. Recognizing it is so useful. It really is. I'm astounded how many things in my world send me into a wild frenzy, or what I consider a wild frenzy anyway. And to have the tools to bring yourself out of that is such a gift. And they're so simple, aren't they? We all just lie on the floor. Couldn't be simpler than that.